Bluebeard. Have you ever heard this name? Probably yes, we all heard, at least once, the French tale of the murderer Bluebeard. Although dark and horrific, Bluebeard's tale is inspired by the real story of Gilles de Rais, a medieval serial killer. In this episode of History Pills, we will explore the reality behind the tale, the real and horrific story of Gilles de Rais. Let's go with the intro. In this picture, easily recognizable by the color of his beard, Bluebeard is about to behead a young woman. The most famous version of this tale was written by Charles Perrault and first published in Paris in 1697. In the story, a young woman marries Bluebeard, a wealthy and powerful nobleman who had been previously married to other 6 beautiful women, all of which had mysteriously vanished. Bluebeard then announces that he must leave for the country and gives the palace keys to his wife. She can open any room she wants with them, each of which contains some of his riches, except for an underground chamber that he strictly forbids her to enter, lest she suffer his wrath. And then goes away, leaves the palace and the keys in her hands. Without his husband around, the woman invites her sister, friends, and cousins over for a party. However, she eventually falls for the temptation to see what the secret room holds. She sneaks away from the party and ventures into it. She enters the room and immediately discovers that the room is flooded with blood and the murdered corpses of Bluebeard's previous 6 wives, all hanging on hooks from the walls. Horrified, she drops the key in the blood and flees the room. She then tries to wipe the blood stain off the key, but the key is magic and the stain cannot be removed. Bluebeard unexpectedly returns and finds the bloody key. In a blind rage, he threatens to kill his wife on the spot. Then, as Bluebeard is about to deliver the fatal blow, her sister and his brothers arrive and kill him. This story ends with the woman inheriting all of Bluebeard's fortunes and living a happy life. This tale, although seemingly surreal, is inspired by a real story. Gilles de Rais was a knight and a lord from Brittany, a leader in the French army and a companion in arms of Joan of Arc. After fighting in the 100 Years' War, he was appointed as Marshal of France, a great honor for him. In 1435, Gilles gradually withdrew from military and public life to pursue his own interests, until on the 15th of May 1440, Gilles kidnapped a cleric during a dispute at the Church of Saint-Étienne de Mer-Morte. The act prompted an investigation by the Bishop of Nantes, during which evidence of Gilles' crimes was uncovered. On the 29th of July, the bishop released his findings, and on the 15th, following a secular investigation that corroborated the bishop's, Gilles and his 2 bodyguards were arrested on charges that included murder, sodomy, and heresy. During the trial conducted by the Inquisition, many peasants of neighboring villages began to make accusations that their children had disappeared. Then, after Gilles admitted to the charges on the 21st of October, under threats of torture, the judges decided that there were adequate grounds to establish the guilt of the accused. In his confession, Gilles said that he committed his first assault on children between spring 1432 and spring 1433. Shortly after, he killed or ordered to kill a large but uncertain number of children after having abused them. Children, predominantly boys between 12 and 18 years old, were tortured, abused, sodomized, and later sacrificed to the demons. The number of Gilles' victims is not known, as most of the bodies were burned or buried. However, estimates consider about 150 killings. On the 23rd of October 1440, the secular court heard the confessions of the two bodyguards and condemned both to death, followed by Gilles' death sentence on the 25th of October. Execution by hanging and burning was set for Wednesday the 26th of October. Just before the execution, Gilles addressed the crowd with contrite piety and exhorted the two bodyguards to die bravely and think only of salvation. It is said that the crowd partaking in the execution started moaning and fell on their knees because of the speech. The serial killer had been able to make a memorable speech and moved to pity everyone. As per his request to die firstly, he was executed. Conversely to his two bodyguards, however, his body was not burned. Instead, he was buried in the monastery of Notre-Dame-des-Carmes in Nantes. Gilles de Rais was convicted of murdering many children. Doubts have long persisted about the verdict. Counter-arguments are based on the theory that Rais was himself a victim of an ecclesiastic plot or act of revenge by the French state. The Duke of Brittany, indeed, who was given the authority to prosecute, received all the titles to Gilles' former lands, and then divided the land among his own nobles. In 1992, a mockery trial of Gilles was held as a media event in France. A team consisting of lawyers, writers, former French ministers, parliament members, a biologist, and a medical doctor found Gilles de Rais not guilty. But, as contemporary French news and academic commentators reported, none of the participants sought professional advice from qualified medievalists. We will never know whether he really was a serial killer, simple victim of a well-prepared plot. It is, however, interesting to analyze the psychology of the time, where a serial killer was condemned not for the crimes per se, but for the occultic and demoniac practices in which he perpetrated these crimes. Do you know any other piece of hidden history? Write it in the comment. Thanks for watching.